Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradari. Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradari. Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava ki jai, Shri Radha Giridhari ki jai, Gaur Premanandi. Hare Krishna. Still better for you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay, that's pretty good. So today we're reading from srimadbhagavatam, 4th canto, 19th chapter, text number 26. We start with the verse, right? Chanting the... start with Om Namo Bhagavate, and then the verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tadavijnaya Bhagavan. Abhigyaya, yeah, follow me. Pritu Pritu Parakramaha. Indraya Kupito Banam. Adato Dyatta Karmukaha. Tadavijnaya Bhagavan. Pritu Pritu Parakramaha. Indraya Kupito Banam. Adato Dyatta Karmukaha. Tadabhigyaya Bhagavan Pritu Pritu Parākramaha Indraya Kupito Banam Adatto Dyatta Karmukaha. Please chant. Tadabhigyaya Bhagavan Pritu Pritu Parākramaha Indraya Kupito Banam Adatyo Dakarmukaha. Tadabhigyaya Bhagavan How did you? Okay, word for word. Tat. That. Abhigyaya. Understanding. Bhagavan. The incarnation of Godhead. Prituhu. King Pritu. Pritu Parākramaha. Celebrated as very powerful. Indraya. Upon Indra. Kupitaha, being very angry. Banam, an arrow. Adata, took up. Udyata, having taken up. Karmukaha, the bow. Translation. Maharaj Prithu, who was celebrated as very powerful, immediately took up his bow and arrows and prepared to kill Indra himself, because Indra had introduced such irregular sannyas orders. Purport. It is the duty of the king not to tolerate the introduction of any irreligious systems. Since King Prithu was an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, certainly his duty was to cut down all kinds of irreligious systems. Following in his footsteps, all heads of state should themselves be bona fide representatives of God, and should cut down all irreligious systems. Unfortunately, there are cowards who declare a secular state. Such a mentality is a way of compromising religious and irreligious systems, but because of this, citizens are generally becoming uninterested in spiritual advancement. Thus, the situation deteriorates to such an extent that human society becomes hellish. I'm going to read a few more verses. Is it best to do them now or after Om Gyan? Okay. So next verse. When the priests and all the others saw Maharaj Prithu very angry and prepared to kill Indra, they requested him, "O great soul, do not kill him, for only sacrificial animals can be killed in a sacrifice. Such are the directions given by Shastra." Purport. Animal killing is intended for different purposes. It tests the proper pronunciation of Vedic mantras, and an animal being put into the sacrificial fire should come out with a new life. No one should ever be killed in a sacrifice meant for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. How then could Indra be killed when he is actually worshipped in the Yajna and accepted as part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Therefore the priests requested King Prithu not to kill him. And last one. Dear King, Indra's powers are already reduced due to his attempt to impede the execution of your sacrifice. We shall call him by Vedic mantras which were never before used, and certainly he will come. Thus, by the power of our mantra, we shall cast him into the fire, because he is your enemy. Purport. By chanting the Vedic mantras properly in a sacrifice, one can perform many wonderful things. In Kali Yuga, however, there are no qualified brahmanas who can chant the mantras properly. Consequently, no attempt should be made to perform such big sacrifices. In this age, the only sacrifice recommended is the Sankirtan movement. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavang Sacha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitam Sacha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dino Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I want to ask for the blessings of all the devotees here, so I may say something beneficial for all of us. So I'll just read the verse again. Maharaj Prithu, who was celebrated as very powerful, immediately took up his bow and arrows and prepared to kill Indra himself, because Indra had introduced such irregular sannyas orders. So the first thing I found interesting about the verse was that Maharaj Prithu, the verse particularly, is saying that he was prepared to kill Indra, not because he, interrupted his sacrifice and he messed things up for him personally. He, got in the way of his personal sense gratification. But he was prepared to kill Indra because he'd introduced such irregular sannyas orders. So because he was violating the system of dharma and or varnashram particularly, he was like making a mockery of religion. So for that reason, Maharaj Prithu was prepared to kill Indra, remove him. And Prabhupada says that quite clearly in the purport, that the duty of the king is not to tolerate the introduction of any irreligious systems. And it's quite funny, Prabhupada, quite a few times in lectures I've heard him say that during his childhood in Kolkata, he'd be just sitting in his house watching the street and things like that, and he'd see so many sannyasis and sadhus and things like that coming by, and they'd come in the morning and they'd be smoking beedis, on the street corner and doing all sorts of nonsense, and then he'd see them dress up in sannyas clothes and look like a great saintly person, and then go out to beg door to door and get material wealth. So it's like a mockery of what sannyas order really is meant to be, which is full surrender to Krishna. But they when it's used in that way, it becomes like a way to gratify our material senses. How can I get something from it? And that's quite an important topic, because it's or a theme which is all pervading in the material world. What's in it for me? How can I get something from it? And very nice devotee, Radhe Shyam Prabhu from Chaupadi just recently gave a nice discussion on that, which I thought would be interesting to bring up a few points from. He was saying that in the material world, we have so many relationships and we experience what we think is love, but really it's only lust, because love is characterized by just wanting to give, just wanting to do pleasing things for the personality that you're trying to love. It's selfless, it's not contaminated by like anger or greed or this mentality of what's in it for me. But in the material world, that's all that the conditioned soul really thinks about is, what can I get from it? What's in it for me? If I give this person a laddu, what will they give me back? It's not really, there's not any selflessness in the actions, which is seen here by Indra, because he's thinking, well, if Maharaj Prithu completes the sacrifice, what's in it for me? I'm not going to be the top gun anymore. I'm not going to be the one who's done a 100-horse sacrifice, and someone will be on my level. So he's trying to push him down, which is one of the symptoms of envious relationship. For someone who's junior, you try and squash them. You try and push them down as much as possible, not let them rise up to a higher platform. But someone who's actually advanced, they try and bring others up and lift them up to the same platform or even higher. And so we're saying, in the material world, the relationships are based on lust. And it's interesting to consider that any relationship without Vishnu or Krishna in the center, any relationship without God in the center, can actually be based on love, can't have real love in it. Because the example is given just like if you have a Mysore pak, which is like a really nice Indian sweet, in one hand, and a laddu in the other hand. And, the laddu says, I'll give you half of, my laddu, you give me half your Mysore pak and we'll enjoy, But the hands can't enjoy, they can't separately enjoy from the whole body. So the only way to really experience that pleasure or satisfaction is you have to feed it to the belly. So similarly, any relationship between the parts and parcels of Krishna and the material world, the only way they can be satisfied is being connected with the source, with the Supreme. And that way they'll be happy. But there is examples that Prabhupada gives of selfless relationships within the material world that aren't based on, completely based on sense gratification. Prabhupada says that the closest thing that comes to love in the material world is the relationship between mother and child. Because the mother, she, it's like, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, this child starts crying. The mother, she's not going to just, okay, whatever, fine. You just keep crying. I'm just going to keep sleeping. The mother has to get up and care for the child and sacrifice everything, that all of her particular personal comforts and sense gratifications for the benefit of the child. So Prabhupada gives the example that the love of a mother for their child is the closest thing that we have to selfless love in the material world. And then next thing in the purport, Prabhupada says that all of the heads of state should be bona fide representatives of God and cut down all irreligious systems. And that, unfortunately, there are cowards who declare a secular state. So I actually wasn't even sure what secular state meant, because I hadn't even heard of it before. In New Zealand, their political stuff isn't very up to date. But when I researched it, it was interesting because it's exactly what an atheistic, or like Prabhupada would say, cowardice system of management is. It's like they don't support religion and they also don't support irreligion, but they're just kind of like trying to be neutral. Yeah, it's exactly what the modern day is. And it's interesting because the idea is that a secular state leads people to freedom and freedom of expression and, think what you want, do what you want. We don't support either side. But it's interesting because it actually doesn't lead people to freedom, because what Maharaj Prithu, his role as king or as the leader of society is that he's supposed to enforce dharma or spiritual and religious order so that people will be satisfied and purified, and all of their lives are aimed towards God, and in that way they'll actually reach the aim of life and be satisfied. But naturally not everyone wants to actually do that on their own. So then when you say, oh, we're just going to have a secular state, people can do whatever they want, it actually doesn't lead them to freedom. It leads them to exact opposite, because the majority of people's senses are uncontrolled. So then as soon as you say do whatever you want, you don't have to follow these rules like a real king should enforce, then immediately people, oh yeah, just go wild, do whatever we want. Which means they're at the whims of their senses. Just whatever the senses say, I'll go here, go there, do this, do that. And you see so many crazy things in society nowadays based on that, because of the secular state. And it's becoming more and more like that as time goes by. Even if you look back at America, 100 years ago, or even 70, 60 years ago, the code of conduct was totally different. If you, if you go outside dressed in some, revealing clothing or something like that, the whole society would, kind of look at you weird and think, well, what's going on with this person? That, that's not very cultured sort of thing. So, as time goes on, obviously, things degrade. Kali Yuga is progressing, and the secular mentality is becoming more and more prevalent. And that's actually what religion or spirituality is there for. The purpose of Bhagavat Dharma, purpose of all that we're doing, is actually to protect people from themselves, because we're identifying with the body, we're identifying with the mind, and we think that this is us, and therefore the desires of these things, I have to, completely go for it. But the spiritual masters, Krishna and the acharyas, they're teaching us that actually that's not what your real desires are. Your true identity is a spirit soul, and you're an eternal servant of God. But that being conditioned by the material nature, you're identifying with the body, and you think these are your desires, but actually that you're, meant to be engaged in this way. And so religion's actually meant to protect people from their lower selves, bring them to their higher selves. And Prabhupada's saying the situation deteriorates to such an extent that human society becomes hellish. So I think that's pretty easy to see. It's interesting that Indra's envy of Maharaj Prithu, everyone, he's speaking for myself, we have envy in the heart when we see someone succeeding greatly. We go, oh, but I'm the greatest, I'm supposed to be the one, I'm supposed to enjoy that, or I'm supposed to do this, or, they're not meant to do that, that's for me. But we have to be careful to check those lower tendencies, because it leads to sinful activities or committing offenses, like we're seeing now. He's trying to interfere with the sacrifice made for the pleasure of Krishna or Vishnu, which is quite an interesting thing, because we understand Indra is a devotee, but at the same time he's acting in a way that's not pleasing to Krishna. But definition of a devotee is they act in a way that is pleasing to God, pleasing to Krishna. So we can understand, obviously he's not a pure devotee, but he should still be respected. But he has material conditionings or material desires. And there's an interesting verse in the Bhagavad Gita which discusses this. It's pretty direct definition of Indra's position right now, but it's Bhagavad Gita 2:44. It's Bhogaishvarya Prashaktanam Taya Parita Chetasam Vyavasayatmika Buddhir Samadho Navidhiyate. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. And then in the purport, Prabhupada says, Samadhi means fixed mind. The Vedic dictionary, the Nirukti, says, Samyag adhiyate smin atma tattva yatatmayam. When the mind is fixed for understanding the self, it is said to be in Samadhi. Samadhi is never possible for persons interested in material sense enjoyment, nor for those who are bewildered by such temporary things. They are more or less condemned by the process of material energy. So it's interesting that that fixed devotional service without interruption, the purity, isn't possible if we're attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, because by nature the jiva is tatastha shakti, can be drawn either way, spiritual or material energy. But if we're in touch with material opulence and sense enjoyment, the jiva generally, unless one's like a very advanced devotee, but if we're in touch with those things or tempted by them and we engage in it, then generally it's very difficult for the jiva to pull themselves back to the spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness, because we're quite easily conditioned. And so yeah, it's important we avoid those things. And the last verse that we discussed today, Prabhupada brings it back home that in Kali Yuga our method for attaining perfection isn't the same as Prithu Maharaj was doing. We don't necessarily try to satisfy Krishna in that way, because it's not recommended, it's not so possible in the modern age. He's saying, by chanting Vedic mantras properly in a sacrifice, one can perform many wonderful things, but in Kali Yuga there are no qualified brahmanas who can chant the mantras properly. So consequently, no attempt should be made to perform such big sacrifices. That would be kind of a news headliner if we tried to do 100-horse sacrifice, out in the patio or something. The news crew comes by, killing 100 horses. That would be all over the news. But Prabhupada says, in this age, the only sacrifice recommended is the Sankirtan movement. So, it brings it back to what we're really all about in the age of Kali, and the recommended method for us to be purified and reawaken our Krishna consciousness. And it says in srimadbhagavatam, really nice verse, Kalim sabhajayant yarya guna gyasara bhaginaha yatra sankirtanenaiva sarvasvarto bilabhyate. That those who are actually advanced in knowledge are able to appreciate the essential value of this age of Kali. Such enlightened persons worship Kali Yuga, because in this fallen age, all perfection of life can easily be achieved by the performance of Sankirtan. And in the purport, Prabhupada's saying a similar thing. He's saying that Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali Yuga each has its own method for achieving perfection, and that we shouldn't try to do things out of place. We can't meditate for 1,000 years, sort of thing. And then he quotes another verse which is important, that whatever is achieved in Satya Yuga by meditation, Treta Yuga by offering ritual sacrifices, and Dwapara Yuga by temple worship, is achieved in Kali Yuga by chanting the names of Lord Keshava congregationally. And that this process brings us out of the darkness of ahankara, false identification with the gross material body, and brings us to the platform of self-realization, that I'm a spirit soul and am eternal. So it's important that we don't fall into the same trap that Indra did, being conditioned by desires for prestige and sense gratification and all these things. We get very attached to it, and then as soon as there's a threat to it, we think, well, let me do anything I have to prevent that. Let me kill this person, let me do this, let me do that. And, it's quite a abominable thing. But yes, so do we have any questions or comments on what we discussed today? Yes, Prabhu.
You talked about the secular state, and how, and it's mentioned here also that that's not good. The state should promote real religion. But the secular state that we have in America was propagated because there was so many religious fanatics. And don't forget the witch trials, in New England, and so much religious persecution in Europe before they came over. So it was a reaction to that. It doesn't excuse it. I mean, there should be real religion and real leaders, but it's hard to imagine how it could happen suddenly, without the spread of Krishna consciousness. Even in India, that was, they picked about the secular state because they have so many different factions of religion. So they said, well, we can't have one religion on top. But now they're the Hindus trying to create a Hindu state. But I don't think it's going to work. It's causing a lot of havoc. Could even cause nuclear war. So it's not. We have to realize that when things have gone so wrong, like in Kali Yuga, it can't be rectified all at once. And so this principle of Prabhupada's real principle was from the bottom up. In other words, when the masses. I heard the conversation because they were always asking Prabhupada in the early days. In the early days, we really thought, well, a few more years and we'll be ruling the world, so we've got to know what we're doing. So they'd ask Prabhupada, well, are we gonna be suddenly elected president? And all that? No, it'll come up from the bottom. You create, you start when the masses are chanting and dancing, then they'll move the leaders rather than try to impose it all at once. Hare Krishna.
I wanted to clarify something that you would know, Prabhu. Because Indra is considered to be, it was saying earlier in one of the verses that he's part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of God. All of us are, but he has a special position, right? He's not a Shakti. He's not Shakti Avesh, right? He's not empowered directly by Vishnu.
Although Prithu is, and I was just reading ahead, and it describes that all of the demigods are part and parcel of Indra.
Oh, wow.
So Indra has it. So it wouldn't be a good idea to kill him because that would create havoc. And they more or less Brahma comes down and pacifies Prithu. That what's the big deal? One more sacrifice. You'll be known as he who performed 99 sacrifices. This whole idea, I got to be 100, is really not necessary. And Indra's already done so much damage. because he started, this model of the false sannyasis and false religions and everything, and it's very much emphasized that was the effect of what he did. He legitimized this fake sannyas, which is still going on. So they were saying, don't compound the problem by actually killing him, which would create havoc in the universe, because he occupies a very important post, the king of heaven, and presiding over other demigods and so many different things. So this is not the first time, where Brahma comes down and he reconciles things and so forth. But what's interesting to me is that this is happening like in Satya Yuga. It's like a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And yet the seeds of all of the degradation are being planted.
Yeah.
So it's always a struggle, to keep things on the right path. And eventually it goes off, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. And Kali Yuga becomes ascendant, and people are all atheistic, and Kaliki comes and wipes it out. So it's this constant struggle.
Because I was reading that Maharaj Prithu, he's a jiva, but he's empowered by the potency of Vishnu, so therefore he's known as Shakti-avesh. But I'd also read that Indra, in different universes, Vishnu can actually be Indra, or take the post of Indra. Is that correct? Yeah. Yeah, but in our universe, Indra is an ordinary jiva, right? Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Because I was thinking Indra, he would be considered a prakrita bhakta, right? A materialistic devotee. Because he's a devotee of Vishnu, but he has so many material desires and wants to enjoy and all these things. Yeah. 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 Pogai Shraya Prashaktanam. Yeah. Yeah, because I was thinking, if in a universe where Krishna or Vishnu takes the post of Indra, it wouldn't be the same pastimes, would it? Because it would make more sense if a conditioned jiva has all these desires and then he lets envy get in the way. But he's a jiva. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Oh. Okay, we can end there. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.